Hey, everybody. I'm Jeremy Goodwin. I am an arts journalist, and I'm Len's guest for this edition of What Do You Want to Do?
Welcome to What Do You Want to Do, the show that will hopefully help you figure out what you want to do in life or reconnect you to what you love doing. Each show has a guest who is doing what they want to do, whether it's in their career or in addition to their regular job. Most importantly, we want to help you realize that no matter your age, you too can do what you want to do if you have the will to do it. Now here's your host, Leonard Caplan.
Welcome, everybody. Here we are again on What Do You Want to Do with another show, another guest, another week. And my guest this week is Jeremy D. Goodwin. How are you, Jeremy?
Hey, Len. How are you today, this evening? Nice to see you and hear you and talk to you.
It's been quite a while. Jeremy was, I said Jerry for a second. I don't know. I'm thinking of Seinfeld. Jeremy was one of the members and a very valuable contributing member to the infamous club called the Cable Club that I always mentioned, that you guys don't know what that's all about, but it was an after-school activity, as I probably mentioned every week when I have one of my Cable Club people on. Do you remember it well, Jeremy?
I remember parts of it well, Len. It was a tremendous resource for us as high school kids to be able to go in there and work with you and create some stuff to put on the TV. So yeah, I learned some production skills there, but also some great people, and had a lot of fun.
It was fun for both of us. Believe me, it was the most fun in my career. The least money in my career working for the cable company, but the most fun creatively I ever had.
It's hard to get the ratio the way you want.
It really is. It's a lifelong struggle, Jeremy. So now, What Do You Want to Do is a show where we explore the origins of figuring out what you want to do and how the guest has gotten there or is there or plans to get there or did get there and isn't doing it anymore. I don't even know what I just said, but it kind of makes sense. So, Jeremy, how old were you when you knew you wanted to be a writer? You're a writer and a radio host. And how did it all come about?
Wow. I've been, well, the milestones that I usually cite are, I believe I wrote my first poem in second grade.
Mm-hmm.
And by fourth or fifth grade was conceiving of myself as a writer, that was a thing that I was good at, but also that was part of my identity.
That's amazing. That is absolutely amazing. Now, I met you when you were about probably 14 or 15. Does that sound about right?
If I was a freshman in high school, that math sounds right.
And from the get-go, I recognized that you had tremendous talent. And I'm not sure if I told you that or not, but the day that I really knew that you were an exceptional talent was the day that you surprised me by we did a comedy show called 4 Weeks in Review, sometimes called Week in Review. So you had a portion of the script and I had the portion of the script, and you didn't tell me that we were recording. We were already going to start. So this became a spontaneous improv between you and I, and we fell into these roles. Like you were antagonizing me and talking about my balding head and I went with it. We went with it. And it's just one of the gems that I have in my DVD collection.
Len, Go ahead. Do a story as only you can. One of those great stories you always do that I couldn't even try to come close to. Go right ahead, Len.
I don't have one ready just now.
What?
I'm not ready.
Len?
Yeah? What's the matter?
Can you try to understand what it was like when your parents told you there was no Santa Claus?
What?
Or when you learned that there was no Easter Bunny?
What
Can you remember that day? Well, that's how I feel right now, Len.
Jeremy, I just don't happen to have these stories. I already did these stories.
I've watched you on TV for weeks and years and watched you and sat by, sucking my thumb, holding my teddy bear, dreaming someday I'll meet him
Please stop this.
Someday I'll get one of his hairs before they're all gone.
Thank you.
And I'm here. And I'm next to you.
What's your
And you
point?
don't have a story?
But look, I read all these stories. What do you want me to do?
Can you make
them
up
all-
another one?
On the spot?
Ladies and gentlemen, if you couldn't figure out, we had something planned which went awry, and we're both trying to ad-lib because someone screwed up, and it wasn't me.
I'm glad it was taken well, apparently.
Oh, of course, of course. I was thrilled inside, like while we were doing it, because I was imagining the audience laughing. It was just so fun, that moment, because I envisioned myself as being on Saturday Night Live. I was a big Saturday Night Live fan. I was just basically, when I ran the cable club, I was just basically playing. I was being a kid with you guys, and that was what was so fun about it.
Week in Review / 4 Weeks in Review was great fun.
Yeah.
And of course, my crowning achievement of that was the election special in 1992.
With 50% of the precincts reporting, this race has proven to be a barn burner. 30% of the vote has gone to Arkansas Governor Bill Clinton, 27% for former California Governor Jerry Brown. A surprising 15% have cast a ballot for Paul Tsongas, who's no longer running. 4% for Larry Agron, 3% for Lyndon LaRouche. I hope it's TV hour for him down at the state pen so he can enjoy his success. 2% for Curly Thornton, 1% for Ron Kovac, 5% for Mario Cuomo, 0.2% for Richard Jones, 0.2% for Eugene McCarthy, 0.15% for Joe McCarthy. I guess those are crossover Bush supporters. 0.0034% for House Majority Leader Dick Gephardt, and 1 vote for Irving L. Schmutz. Irving's looking pretty well so far, isn't he, Len?
I think he's doing pretty horrible.
What? His organization efforts in American Samoa are tremendous, grassroots organizations. He did what he had to do. He got out the vote.
1 vote. What? What are you talking about?
He got out the vote. I don't know which one it was, but apparently he liked Schmutz.
What are you, a spin doctor?
MD.
Anyway, I think it's time to go to a break.
Conceived to be airing during the primaries, and I think
Yes.
I didn't actually get it on the air till like certainly after the November election, but it's possible it was even 1993 before it was done. But if I recall, it was live coverage of the American Samoa primary, and a dark horse candidate named Irving L. Schmutz was the leading vote getter. And I remember I also listed Newt Gingrich as one of the people who had gotten some votes a couple years before he became more of a household name. Irving L. Schmutz.
That's funny. I look at some of those shows now. In the credits, I had Donald Trump because he was a celebrity back then, and he was kind of a comic fellow back then. And little did we know the power that he would get later on. But anyway,
that's a different podcast. I think
that's a different podcast. You don't want to comment on that one. That's okay. So that was the moment that I really said, geez, I wonder where he's going to go after high school. And you worked for the Boston Globe for a while, and you did reviews for bands and different things. Now, how did you break into a major metropolitan newspaper so early in your life? Amazing.
To be clear, I've freelanced for the Globe quite a bit, but not going on for more than 10 years now.
Yeah.
And there was a brief little period where I was actually filling in for someone who is now she runs the editorial page for the New York Times. She was at the Boston Globe at the time, and I happened to be filling in for her for several weeks.
That's amazing. That's you don't have to be on the staff to be considered. You did write for the Boston Globe. Not everybody gets to do that even once. And you were a freelancer to the Globe. Another friend of mine, Dave Radigan, was just on with me here. I don't know if you ever met him or not, but he used to work with me at Warner Cable at one time. But he freelanced for the North section of the Globe.
Okay.
Did you ever meet him?
Len, my arc with that was growing up with the Globe on the kitchen table, thinking of it as the epitome of news gathering in New England, and wanting to someday write in those pages. through to being a young freelancer, writing for other outlets and really wanting to get to the Globe and not being able to really crack it. And occasionally sending a pitch that I didn't hear a response from, and viewing it as this thing that was going to be, that was hard to get to.
Right.
Through to my first story in maybe 2011, 2012. And that first story being this huge event for me, getting the assignment. And then I remember I was at an event at my then job and checking the website on my phone to wait for it to get posted, and excitingly seeing it get posted. 2 years later, having that be the biggest source of my income for a couple of years as a freelancer, and having it be a regular thing where I had editors who I check in with and present my list of pitches for the month. And they said, I'll take this, that, and the other. And it was, a wonderful way to work for a while. What's difficult is during that period when I was freelancing full time, there was a period where the Globe management severely cut back the freelance budget. In fact, as it's been told, the first declaration was that they were going to cut out freelancers entirely, and a lot of people on staff said, "We're going to lose so much great content, so many good people, you can't do that." Instead, it was the rule that affected me, I think, was what they stopped accepting freelance reviews of theater. There were no pop music critics on staff because they had left, so they were still taking concert reviews. But the amount of work did decrease, and the amount, there was a period where on Saturdays they weren't running an art section. That was an experiment that I guess didn't go so well. But yeah, I try to remind myself successfully that it's a privilege to have a chance to be in those pages when I do. And the most meaningful thing to me, Len, and I'm sorry this became a bit of a monologue, I don't know if that's what you wanted, but reviewing Phish concerts for the Globe is a big sentimental favorite thing of mine, because I remember going to my first in 1995 and excitedly looking for the Globe review. And so to be in a position to be able to do that 20 years later has been very satisfying.
That's amazing. That's what it's all about. That's what do you want to do is all about. And not everybody, a very small minority of people get to do even one childhood dream. But with you, it's one after the other, the Globe and the Phish concert and all the other columns that you did. And you're on the radio now, but let's wait and talk about that a little later. I want to talk about when you moved to the Berkshires. What was out in the Berkshires that attracted you, and professionally or personally, or both?
Well, it was quite simple. I was in between jobs at the moment, and there was a listing for a newspaper reporter in Great Barrington, Massachusetts. And I applied just from having seen it on a job site, and they wanted to talk to me. So I drove out to Great Barrington. They offered me the job, and 2 weeks later, I had purchased my first car, gotten my first apartment, and was moved in and starting the new job. And professionally, it was at a level where I had been already, because I had been on staff at the Marblehead and Swampscott Reporters and the North Andover Citizen weekly local papers, and this was a weekly paper covering a bigger region, southern Berkshire County. But most of all, it got me to the Berkshires, and I love it there. And I stayed for 10 years.
I saw that when you were making the decision to move to St. Louis. You're in St. Louis now, correct?
Yeah, the arch is right there. I mean, I can't see through walls, but I'm right next to it. Yeah.
So when you were sad to move away from the Berkshires, so the offer must have been pretty good to move to the Berkshires. Now we can talk about your radio career. Now, did you ever in your life think that you'd be on the radio?
It wasn't an aspiration that I had back in the day. No. I was a great listener of public radio. but
Yeah.
I was actually in the Berkshires when, through a friendly connection, I was put in touch with Fred Bever, the then news director of New England Public Radio, based in Amherst.
Mm-hmm.
And I started doing little assignments for them. The first one was holding a microphone while someone else read his editorial, his commentary.
Mm-hmm.
And I made the recording and sent the recording over. The second thing was go get responses from a storm. And I went to the coffee shop and asked a couple of people about it, the storm that had just happened. And from there, I ended up, writing and not producing at that time, but writing news stories and features. So that was part of my freelance bundle for a couple of years, starting in about 2011, I think. So that was, for a while, that was just in the mix. And there was a period where I had regular hours as a freelancer with them. It was almost a semi-salaried situation as a freelancer. But that was in the mix. And I found that I kept getting a really good response from my work in that field, which was very gratifying. But sometimes you listen to, you got to have an ear for how your audience is responding in whatever medium. And I pushed it with the radio. And there was a move after 10 years in the Berkshires. I probably mistakenly felt like I had hit a bit of a ceiling, just in terms of its geographically remote, and more concretely, I knew that I would get more Globe assignments if I lived in Boston and would get to do things like review Boston theater, which was very appealing. So the time came where I loved it in the Berkshires and could have continued, but went back to the North Shore and continued, my freelance work. And at that time, I started working with WBUR 90.9 FM in Boston, mostly for their web page, where I wrote and also edited some other writers for a bit. But once in a while, I had something on the air, and that was a big thrill. Certainly, the first couple times that happened, hearing Bob Oak's unmistakable voice reading my intro that I had written was quite a thrill.
So that's how you came to the attention of the people in St. Louis. Then they must have heard your radio stuff here, right?
Again, that was a case of me applying from having. People say that this never happens. I've had these two good experiences. I've certainly sent hundreds of applications that received no response from websites, but this one was one where I didn't know them at all, didn't know much about St. Louis, just sent in my materials, and they wanted to talk more about it, and flew me out here to St. Louis for a day of interviews. And when the time came, that opportunity was presented, and I moved west, just over the Mississippi River.
You run the gamut, Jeremy, with your subject matter. Are there any particular favorites that you like to do? Do you take more toward reviewing, or for reviewing albums, or reviewing live performances, or hard news, or politics, or what? What is your favorite?
Well,
stuff?
to be clear, I run the gamut within the world of arts. I focus on the arts. That's what I did in my freelance practice. At the newspaper, of course, the newspapers where I worked full time, it was everything under the sun. But I'm a lover of the arts, and I probably started writing little reviews of concerts and trying to get those published, and it became my focus. So here at St. Louis Public Radio, the job title is Arts and Culture Senior Reporter, and I produce news stories. My podcast is on hold right now. We're reconfiguring it. During the pandemic, it became difficult to keep the podcast going, and we're thinking about sort of relaunching it maybe. But my job here is largely to produce 1 minute news stories and also 4 to 5 minute feature stories, all within the arts. There's no reviewing it from this seat, because that's considered, opinion. So
I see.
Yeah. Whereas at the
Do you?
rules are a little different with freelancers, and at the Globe, I would be writing features about certain theater companies and whatnot, and also reviewing productions by those theater companies. Never the same production. That would be just very bad practice. But I did get to alternate between reviews and feature stories.
So would you rather be on the radio, or would you rather be writing an article?
I'm gonna give you a politician answer to that, Len. There's
Okay.
it's very gratifying in different ways. Sure, the written word is where my heart is, and radio reporting combines the reporting skills, which I used more frequently when I was really in newspapers full time, with performance. It's also a performance. And that part appeals to me because I'm a bit of a ham and I don't have a stage to get on myself. So when I record, especially my features, I am able to imbue the work with my personality to some extent. I'm not able to have it be fully my personality like it would be when I would be writing a theater review or a concert review. But it's in there. So it's and something I noticed right away with New England Public Radio, Len, was if I had a story, I could have 4 stories in print that week. If I did something on the radio, 5 people would say, "Hey, I heard your story on New England Public Radio." So the audience seems to be bigger, or there's something more immediate about it, or what. But to have access to the airwaves and do what I do is a great privilege. So, I enjoy both things in different ways.
Yeah, I understand. I understand that because I like to write myself. I've never been published though. Well, I have published like little articles here and there about little promotional articles for Wrestling Talk, the show that I used to do, and I don't do it anymore. We quit in 2018, and that's
did
a
you?
show that you guys.
How many years? How many years did you do that?
31 years. 31 years we did it.
And how many with the late great Paul Fay?
Well, from 1987 to when he died, almost when he died. His last show was November of 1990. So.
So that was a short period in the life of the show.
Yeah, it was a short period, but it cast a long shadow because a lot of people that they like those shows the best. And we had some of our biggest guests during that time as well. But anyway, this is about you, not me. But that's okay. It's pretty flexible on this show. So your career path has been very untraditional, I would say. Did you ever have a real resume? Or was it based on your work?
Yeah,
You do, okay.
That resumes are definitely a part of my work experience. Yeah.
Okay.
I mean,
because part of the show. Go ahead.
My path is more common these days, I think. I mean, in terms of the freelancing, for instance, a good thing, something that has worked out well for me is that this radio station actually already had a history of converting print reporters to radio reporters. I had years and years of off and on experience with radio. So, I did have a leg up, but the organization has people who worked in print and migrated over to public radio.
My opinion on something. What I always kind of bemoan is what I call the death of newspapers and the death of radio because of the internet. Podcasts are taking over and digital news is taking over. Do you think there will come a time when newspapers like the Globe will no longer be in business?
I mean, it depends on how many years out we're thinking. I mean, people really want their local news, and legacy titles like the Times and the Post have done well converting or adapting to the digital era. I don't have any more answers to the future of newspapers than anyone else does.
Yeah, I mean, my observation is I'll go into Market Basket. The price of newspapers has gone up substantially, and I want to buy the newspaper, but I I start thinking how much it is, and how much do I want to spend a week, on something that's going to be outdated very shortly. Although there are good substantial articles in there that can stand the test of time a little bit, but most of the news is more instant. And I noticed that in Market Basket, they don't carry the newspaper sometimes. There's some days that they'll have yesterday's paper or even the day before.
I don't necessarily think there's anything superior to hearing news very quickly that hasn't been analyzed, hasn't been carefully put into context, that doesn't tell a larger story. Human civilization made it a long time without having to
Mhm.
see things happening instantaneously. So, I mean, there's a thrill to it, but the quality of the journalism is what's important, I think, not the medium or the frequency of the publication. And news organizations like the Globe are
Mhm.
positioned to cover their communities. They have people who know how to cover the courts, who know how to cover the police, who know how to cover City Hall, who know how to cover the arts. And someone who's cranking out, I mean, this is a particular niche within the digital communications, but someone who's pumping out 10 short pieces a day,
Mhm.
they're getting the clicks, but is that serving the reader any better than Len Kaplan picking up the Boston Globe and reading an 800-word feature about something? I don't think so. So newspapers, specifically newspapers, provide a product that isn't necessarily matched
Mhm.
elsewhere.